So I've just come back from Portugal and Austria, and I thought it would be cool to talk about my experience of traveling during COVID. So I just want to say in advance that this is my experience of traveling to Portugal and Vienna and then back to the UK. Things might have changed in the last couple of weeks since I went away, so please do your own research and check on the official government websites of all these countries before you go there. So a couple of weeks ago, I flew from Bristol in the UK to Lisbon in Portugal. UK, Portugal, Austria, UK. And I was just going for the purpose of a holiday. I was double vaccinated, so I'm not sure what the conditions are for entry into these countries if you're not double vaccinated. So again, just check the government sites of the places you go into because the rules will differ, the things that you need will differ, so just check it out. When I went over a couple of weeks ago, Portugal required a passenger locator form as well as proof of vaccination to enter the country. The passenger locator form is an online form that I was directed to from the UK government website, and it's quite a quick form. You give things like your flight number, where you're staying, how long you plan to be there, and they also required the proof of vaccination. So for that, I used the NHS app. Within that, there's a COVID-19 travel section, and within that, you can get your COVID travel pass. So it comes as a QR code in the app. You can get sent an offline copy, so you can download it as a PDF or you can get sent it by email. I will say with the proof of vaccinations, if you're using the NHS app and you're getting it up live every single time and you're showing the person in front of you on the app, it's fine, it auto-regenerates, it doesn't expire basically. But if you're sending an offline copy to yourself, so you're either downloading a PDF or you're sending it to yourself via email, there is an expiry date, and I think it's something like 30 days from when you generate the offline copy. So if your trip's going to be longer than that and you plan to use your offline copy, generate it again, probably before that 30-day window expires. You can just do the same process over and over to get new copies and always up-to-date versions. That said, I was using the offline version but in my Photos app. So I was using a screenshot that I took of the offline copy, so I had it in my Photos, so it was always offline. So whenever I was traveling through airports, I needed to be on planes or in places where there wasn't much signal, I had this offline copy in my Photos. I could quickly go into Photos, which is always accessible regardless of your internet status, show it to the person, they scan it, job done. So in Bristol Airport, people had to wear masks with the exception of when you're eating and drinking. So whenever you're snacking or going to the restaurants inside the airport, just by the gates, you don't have to wear the mask. But outside of that, you had to wear a mask, and they did repeatedly put it out on the tannoys to wear it. The mask that they were generally requiring people to wear was the FFP2s or above. Generally, they have a label on them that say FFP2 or FFP3. So also on the mask, they might have some other labels as well. Just check whichever country you're going to that you've got the right labels, basically, because it means that they were made by an approved supplier and that the government of the place you're going to approves it. At the gate in Bristol Airport, all they required was to see the standard stuff: passport, boarding pass. I didn't need to show my proof of vaccination. I didn't need to show a passenger locator form. Whether or not I was needed to, I'm not sure, but they didn't ask me. They just sent me through the queue and I was on the plane. On the plane, it's as you can imagine, everyone has to wear masks unless they're eating or drinking. That was for the entirety of the flight. It actually wasn't so bad. It was a 2.5-hour flight. I was wearing my FFP3 for the first one, and it was actually pretty comfortable. I had a small mask and it fitted really, really well. Nothing was escaping, nothing was coming in. It was fantastic. When I landed in Lisbon, they didn't do a temperature check. They just wanted to see my passport. I think I had my camera out at the time, so they asked me if I was a YouTuber. He sent me through, and that was it. I was in Lisbon. Just for a quick update on Lisbon. Lisbon was a really similar thing to the UK. It was just masks indoors, so in shops and in places you went to. Outside, you didn't have to wear masks, and it was pretty much business as usual. So then the next leg of my journey was to fly from Portugal to Austria. So I was flying from Lisbon to Vienna. At the gate, they just wanted to see a passport and a boarding pass, nothing fancy. They let me on the plane. It was the same situation, just wear a mask. So when I landed in Vienna, that was the first time that anyone had asked to see my proof of vaccination. They didn't scan it, but they did have a good old look. They really zoomed in on my phone. I assume they were checking the dates and the validity of it, where it came from, who it was generated by. They did scrutinize it a little bit, but they didn't scan it. I don't know why. I think it would have been easier to scan, but maybe they didn't have the equipment or something. This was just the police on border control. They just wanted to see passport and the proof of vaccination. The only difference between Vienna and the UK, or even Portugal, was that to get into places, you did have to show a proof of vaccination. Again, I'm not sure how closely people were checking the proof of vaccinations. I had my phone out when I was showing them, I was showing here's the expiry, here's where it was generated, I was proving that it was myself. I think they were checking that the two were tallied up and that it was the right person. But outside of that, no problems. They just wanted to see it and then they let me into the places. Just a small aside to say that there were plenty of different types of proof of vaccinations. So some people like myself were showing it through apps or screenshots on the phones. Some people were showing it on bits of paper. I've seen really, really trashy, torn up bits of paper that they were still accepting. It just needs to show things like the expiry date, the QR code if needs be, where it was generated, who it's for, and occasionally they might ask you for some ID to go alongside it to prove that it's you. The last leg of my journey was to fly from Vienna back to Bristol. It was with Ryanair, and it was quite a spontaneous decision, so I hadn't planned it out super far in advance. The only difference this time was that in addition to needing a passenger locator form, boarding pass, passport, the standard things, I also needed to book a day 2 test. I didn't need to do anything in Vienna to come back to the UK, but I did need to book some things online so that when I was back in the UK, I could do this day 2 test without any problems. Again, the UK government website is the place to go. It's got a complete list of where you can get your tests from, and there are a lot of places. Many different options, lots of different prices, lots of different days for delivery. I needed a pretty quick one because I was coming back that day, so I needed quite a quick turnaround. So I got a next day delivery, which worked out absolutely fine. I will say that on that government site, some of the prices are listed as quite cheap, but when you click into them, go onto the website that they take you to, and actually go through the delivery options and the various types of LFT tests that you can get, the price increases a little bit. So don't always take that UK government price as gospel and as what you're actually going to pay. I think I ended up paying something like £22 for my day 2 test with next day delivery, which was fantastic. So I think that's pretty good. The flight back to the UK was the exact same as the rest of them. I just needed to have a passenger locator form. No one scrutinised it heavily. They just wanted to see that I'd done it at some point. There was a section on the passenger locator form that asks for a day 2 test code. So beforehand, I did need to book the day 2 test, get an order confirmation code, which I could then use in the box on the passenger locator form as proof that I got my day 2 test. The company that I used, they were really helpful. They were really smooth. The instructions were really, really clear. Make your payment, you get an order confirmation code, it gets sent to you by email, and obviously the actual test comes to you in the post the next day. But in the email, it clearly lists the order confirmation code that you need to put inside the passenger locator form. When I was back in the UK, I needed to do this day 2 test. So I received the test in the post. It's got the instructions labeled clearly. You activate the kit online, you take the test, you then leave it a little bit of time to make sure the test is working. You take a picture of the test and the result and your information. It's all in a pre-made shape, so you can just take one picture with it all in one place. They make it really easy for you. You then upload that picture to the company's website. They then review the test and send it off to Public Health England. So that then takes me up to a couple of days ago. I haven't been here in the UK long, and that was the entirety of the trip. Just some takeaways were that I don't think people were too interested in the actual nuances of the proof of vaccination or of the passenger locator forms, but they definitely asked, have you got them, even if they didn't look closely at them. I don't know how clear all this information is online. I will say the best place was the UK government's website. It really did break things down as well as can be. The great thing is that from that government website, it points you to the official government websites of the countries you're going to. You do need to look at the government's website and the website of the country that you're going to. I made some of the decisions quite spontaneously and I was still able to do it fine. You just need to make sure you've got, I'd say, 4 core things: passport, boarding pass, passenger locator forms, and proof of vaccinations. Again, as I said earlier, do double check the regulations and what you actually need because things change quite frequently. This was just my experience. Please do your own research, but have a great time. So we met Jon for the first time earlier this week. I'm back with him again today, and today he needs a hand moving out the rubbish that's in here to make it a better space for recording and to put it into a more orderly fashion where he can actually use it for filming, recording, and playing in podcasts. Jon's main motivation for doing this is to have 2 places that he can record in. One is to film in front of the camera, and the second one is to play in front of the camera. I also think there's an element of free labour being involved, so I'm going to ask for some food at some point. This lighting that makes my face so bright comes from a combination of 1, 2, 3, and some natural lighting as well. This is how Jon films his podcast. So this is an iPhone 13. It's got a pretty good camera and the quality comes out really well. I've got an older iPhone, but it comes out pretty well just on that one. So this one must be a beast, particularly with the new cinematic mode. So I'm here with Jon. He's from the Red Special Guitar podcast. He's got his own channel. He publishes to YouTube, Spotify, and I think some other places. I thought it'd be cool to have an understanding of a little bit about what Jon does, how it works, how his first year has been doing it.
Yes, it's the Red Special Guitar podcast. So back in the early 60s, Brian May wanted an electric guitar, a young 16-year-old Brian May, and he asked his family and they said that they couldn't afford to buy one. His dad, being an engineer, said, why don't we make you one out of the stuff that we've got at home? It'd be a lot cheaper. And his dad, being a really good engineer, helped Brian over the course of 18 months make the Red Special. It's pretty much the same guitar that he uses today, barring a couple of small alterations and a couple of refurbs. But he's literally used that guitar since about 1964 right the way until current day on every Queen hit, album, every Queen song, barring a couple, every live performance. He's taken it all the way around the world with him countless times. And it's just the story of a father and son really got to me as a young man. And it's just been something that I've followed for a really long time. And thinking about mortality and thinking we're all getting a bit older, so maybe we ought to capture some of these conversations that I've been having with my friends who I've made over all of these years and document them. I didn't really want to make YouTube videos either because they're hard work and effort, and I just thought, I'll make a podcast. About a year ago I started recording the first episode. Since then we've put more and more out, and then people have asked for it to be on YouTube, so I put the audio on YouTube with some pictures and then carried it on with now moving into video as the YouTube channel subscribers go up, and we're doing more bits and pieces, so it feels like it's time to sort the studio out and actually make a space.
You say it's not a lot of work. You say it's more work doing YouTube or something. I know you put in a lot of work, right, for podcasts. Like it takes you a lot of time to make an episode, doesn't it? It's not a quick record it, publish it out. You've got to make edits. You've got to make the video to go alongside it. You've got to put snippets out onto your socials and stuff. It's not a quick thing, is it? It's
there's a lot involved, and it's more involved than I realised when I first started it. If I'd known now, or knew then what I know now, maybe it wouldn't have happened, so maybe that's a good thing. But yeah, you've got to think about who you want to interview and then plan that interview, and you need to ask some questions in advance and agree a set time, and then you need to sort out the technology to be able to record it.
So how many episodes have you published now, and how many people have you spoken with in total?
So 13 episodes out now. You can go to YouTube, my YouTube channel, and listen to any one of them, or you can download them all on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, all of the standard podcast streaming sites. So I've got about another 5 recorded, which I'm editing, not all at the same time. For example, for each episode is maybe an hour to 2 hours of recording with someone, then you have to edit that down and make it a conversation. So that takes an hour to 2 hours to listen to, and then edit that on top. Try and your best to get the levels right, although I don't always. And then what I like to do is pass that back to the person who I recorded it with, because sometimes you're recording with people who maybe have an interest in... I mean, I've been really lucky with some of the people on the channel, so they wanted to check what they're saying just to make sure it's an accurate representation of what they said, and they're not saying something that they don't want misinterpreted by anyone. So they then listen to it, they'll come back with edits, and you edit it, send it back until you get it to a place where everyone's happy with it. And then you have to create all of the artwork for the thumbnail and think about what you're going to write about it, and then load it up, and then schedule it for release, and then talk about it's going to be released, and then release it, and then ask people questions. Yes.
It's a lot of work. And then you've got things like merchandise on the sides.
Yeah.
You've got your own merchandise store. You've got in-person events that you organise.
Yep.
There's a lot surrounding the digital side, isn't it? It's not just what you see online. It's the in-person stuff as well. But merchandise looks pretty cool. I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, and that's really just to help. I put a lot of time and effort into this endeavour of mine. And again, I hadn't really thought about it, but some of my friends got in touch with me after having watched some episodes or talking to me about it, and said, you really need to get something back for your time, because you're spending a lot of time for a lot of people doing these things.
Yeah.
And I do take time out of the evenings. I work a full-time job. I've got 2 young children. Not get me wrong, I love doing it, but definitely when you tot up the hours in a week of what you're doing, it's basically a part-time job on top of a full-time job and being a father and a husband. Yeah, the merch really is is so people can support the podcast, it gets the message out there, but also helps with a few pennies towards maybe upgrading some equipment or just towards my time for doing it. Hopefully you will be able to go and meet people soon to interview them, and that's going to be a game changer, because I know I can take camera equipment and record the conversations. I really just taking some advice really on making sure that I get something back for it.
Yeah. So Brian May himself, you are yet to meet?
Correct. I've not met him ever. I've never tried to meet him either.
Okay. So one day we're hoping that's going to happen?
Well,
or are we not?
I get asked this a fair bit from my friends and my followers, and the goal was never to meet Brian May. The goal really was to capture those conversations that if they weren't captured, then those snippets of information, those wonderful stories, that the inspiration of this father and son duo making guitar and what it's led other people to do would be lost forever. And I just think that needs to be captured for the future generations to find. And at some point, I'm sure, in many years to come, some of the forum members who I've spoken to won't be around any much longer, or they won't want to post up. And we don't want to lose that information for everyone else, because this story to me is is unlike any story that is out there for guitar players.
It's crazy, isn't it? This one story, which started at the age of when? Sorry,
for me.
For you, when you discovered it.
I was like 17 when I properly got into it.
17. And you're older than that now. I don't know. Well, I won't say by how much exactly, but you're older than that now. It's captured you for this many years, basically. Yeah. It's it's no trivial thing, isn't it, to look back and over the years and realise the same persistent stories kept you going and kept you inspired.
I haven't always been as focused.
Yeah.
On it. So I've been in and out of. I describe it as being in and out of love with it, and that's for various reasons. When I came back to it last time, it was about 6 or 7 years ago, I think, or maybe 5 or 6.
Okay.
I just felt that we needed to create a sense of community and people, and what I really missed from being away wasn't so much the gear and the effects and the amps and sounding like Brian May. It was that social interaction with people with a similar interest to me, because it's amazing how this one story has inspired people all over the world that now we then have the same interest. You find that you've got a lot of other common interests with them, so you've got a similar taste in movies, music, the arts. You end up becoming friends with people that are based all around the world, and
which you have, right?
Yeah.
They've come to your meetups as well. People travel a long way to come to the in-person events, don't they?
Yeah, they come from around Europe. We've got the US Red Special meetup in March next year, which I'll be going back to, which is in Phoenix, Arizona. It's just nice to get away and to see some of the other faces and meet the people behind the screen of Facebook, which is where one of the forums is, or the old Red Special forum, which is how we all originally spoke.
So are there many communities, YouTube channels, podcasts dedicated to this already, or is it just
not what I'm doing? So there's a couple of really good YouTubers out there that do some great things. It's just such a lovely community of people. But if you're interested in Red Specials, then the content's out there. But no one was specifically capturing that interpersonal, like a relationship, how this story has inspired people. And I think that as Brian gets a bit older and we all face our own mortality, that's important. And I hope really that the message that the podcast brings, I think when you asked me, Dan, what I hope to gain from this is for Brian May to understand that it's not just the Queen music and it's not just the guitar and us nerds wanting the same thing. It's that community, that the act of him and his father building the guitar back in the 60s has now spawned this whole international group of friends. And I don't know if he's aware of that. I don't know if anyone's actually looked at it that way, but I think to get that message over to him and to say thank you to him, that would be probably the goal.
Just as a final thing, where can people find you if they want to listen to you on Spotify, etc., YouTube? Where can they go?
So just head to the website redspecialguitarpodcast.com, and then there's all the links to all our different social places. I think I've got one video on TikTok, which is horrendous. Right. Don't watch that. But yeah, and the website's probably the best place to go, and then you can find out all about how you can support the channel on Patreon. You can now buy me a beer, and you can buy some merch if that's what you're interested in. So
I will put a link to that website in the description below, so do go and check it out if you're interested. In the meantime, thank you very much. Nice to speak to you.
Cheers,
and we'll leave it there.
Thanks, mate.
I should have done that.
Yeah, that's all right. And then you can do that.
Just to wind down the day, we've brought our dogs to a place where they absolutely love. It's this field in the middle of nowhere. As you can see, it's very green all around us. Lots of space for them to run and play, and gorgeous views for us to enjoy in the meantime. This one loves tennis balls. This one loves sniffing and smelling lots of things. Getting pretty dark. I'm gonna have a couple more throws with the dog and then I'm gonna call it a day. Thanks for watching.